Okay, so today we're going to begin looking at the nakshatras, the descriptions of the nakshatras, and by the end of this course we'll have gone through all of them. But for our first session with Michael Reed here, we're going to look at the first four nakshatras, Ashwini, Bharani, Kritika, through Rohini, and this is going to be to give us a sense of what are the qualities of these nakshatras, so that we can understand how to apply those qualities when there is the moon in that nakshatra, the sun in that nakshatra, any planet in that nakshatra, the ascendant in the nakshatra, to give us some more details about how those areas of life represented by that point or that planet will grow and manifest in our life. So good to have you here with us again, Michael. And
thanks, Ryan. Wonderful to be here.
Yeah, I look forward to hearing what you have to say. So how would you like to begin today?
Well, I thought that, with each of these, we would, cover some brief symbolism, maybe a couple of mythological stories when appropriate in relation to the particular deities, but just some general things that can be very quickly and easily committed to memory, but once committed to memory can stir your thought processes and give you something to meditate further upon, which really, that's what gives birth to understanding each of these particular nakshatras. So starting with Ashwini, one of the things that I like to do is to mark something called the evolutionary journey through the nakshatras, the concept of the divine spark coming into creation, eventually incarnating, a person working through their incarnation, and finally making that journey home, and how that journey is really lived out through the nakshatras. And the nakshatras are, basically split into three different sections that are, the first 9 are primarily rajasic or active as their basic nature. The second 9 are more tamasic as their basic nature. And the tamasic nakshatras mark more when the soul is becoming more deeply incarnated and attached to the material attachments. And then the final 9 are the sattvic nakshatras, which mark more of the striving towards the journey home in relation to the nakshatras. So starting with Ashwini, Ashwini is the very first of the nakshatras. And as such, it marks the beginning of all things. And at the beginning of all things, what is there except unmanifested potential? There's just latent potential. And it's through this particular nakshatra, Ashwini, that the forces of creation are aroused. And there's a wonderful story to this effect that involves Ashwini Nakshatra. And in addition to that, it also gives an understanding of where the deities that are associated with Ashwini Nakshatra come from. And those are called the Ashwin Kumars. And basically, this story is about the sun. Let's think beyond the sun in our solar system, but let's think of the universal sun. Extremely, extremely brilliant. But because he's so brilliant, he's not going to be able to have a wife, right? So his mother, Aditi, decided to try to find a sage to help her to reduce the splendor of the sun. So what he did was he basically took the sun and carved it into 12 parts. Now we have a good analogy for the zodiac right there. So he took the sun and he carved it into 12 parts. The sun belonging to our universe then married the daughter of the celestial architect, Vishwakarman, also called Tvashtar. But because the sun was so brilliant, even just the sun within our solar system, she had a hard time discharging her marital responsibilities. And she felt bad about this and decided that she needed to contemplate what her dharma or what her path needed to be, so she went to perform penance in order to do so. And while she did, she left her servant, her servant's name was Chaya, to attend to her husband. And there's a lot of symbolism that's getting ready to be shown through this next little bit. So what happened then was the son mistook Chaya for his real wife, and he became infatuated with her. Now, another meaning for Chaya is shadow, or colors. So here we have the pure brilliance or pure unmanifested light, and he becomes infatuated with shadow. Okay, after thinking that shadow is his wife, who is the daughter of the divine architect. right? So that's another meaning there too. So when Twashti returned, she found out of about what had happened, and because it wouldn't have been appropriate in the eyes of her family to return back to her father, instead she decided she was just going to run away. So she basically turned herself into a mare and ran away. And the son found out about this and went chasing her, and then found her and became united with her. And from this union, the divine twins, the Ashwin Kumars, were actually born. But here we have a concept of, divine potency, becoming infatuated with shadow, becoming infatuated with matter, becoming infatuated with the concept of differentiation. Okay? And basically, here we have the concept of the wife of the sun wanting to do dharmically what was correct, but didn't feel that she could do so because of the basic brilliance of the sun. So she didn't feel she could connect to that divine potential. So she ran away, basically. So, and there we have the concept of, I don't like using the word sin, but the whole thing of turning from ourselves or turning from our basic nature. And so the sun basically, when he united with her, the divine twins were born. And the divine twins are the Ashwin Kumars, who are the divine physicians. And the energy of Ashwini itself is that of healing things quickly. Each of the nakshatras has a Shakti, or an energy. And the Shakti of Ashwini is the power to heal things quickly. In order to further illustrate this particular point of Ashwini, I like talking about the fact that Ashwini Nakshatra is Rajasic on all three levels. So its basis or its foundation is very Rajasic or active energy. And it builds upon that with more Rajasic active energy and caps it all off with even more Rajasic and active energy. And its primary motivation is Dharma, doing that which is right. So the energy of Ashwini Nakshatra is to do something that is right, but to do something that is right rather quickly, to just jump into action without thought, because one knows one's dharma, right? And that's the general energy when Ashwini Nakshatra is functioning in a more positive polarity. The basis above, the basis below, and the result with this particular nakshatra, well, the basis above is that the heavens are providing those to be healed. The heavens provide, we each come from that particular realm. We each come from spirit, right? So in a sense, we're here, we're incarnated, we're here to be healed, we're here to become whole. The basis below, here on earth, here in our incarnation, are all the healing therapies. Everything that we need in existence in order to become more whole is right here. And the result of the combination between those two is a world that becomes free from disease. So we are each a part of that sun. We're each a fragment of that sun. We carry an energy or a ray of that particular sun, and we're here to be healed so that we can overcome the separation, the feelings of separation, or the lack of recognition of our inherent divinity, so to speak. The ruling planet of Ashwini is Ketu. Now, Ketu is also the planet that gives spiritual detachment. So we have to cultivate spiritual detachment so that we can come to that understanding. And the Trimurti association with Ashwini Nakshatra is Brahma. So Ashwini Nakshatra has a very creative energy. When it's not functioning in a positive polarity, it can become a little bit impulsive and sometimes hasty and doesn't always do the right thing. It acts without consideration. But when it's acting in a positive polarity, well, then it's doing what's right because it just flows naturally from the center of oneself.
So with these, with this nakshatra, and we're going to do this hopefully with a few more, I believe, when you're thinking about planets in this nakshatra or, house lords in this nakshatra, what are some examples you might have or can think of to help us understand just on a basic level, this planet in this nakshatra could speak to this, or this planet in this nakshatra could speak to that with this particular? nakshatra?
Let's give some ideas, and one that just popped into my head immediately, right? Let's look at a couple of different concepts with Venus. Let's say Venus as the seventh lord, so it's a relationship factor. Well, if Ketu isn't very well supported, or if both Ketu and Venus are not very well supported, that person may kind of get into relationships a little too quickly, jumping in head first without really thinking about what's going on. A 10th lord, or the Atmakaraka in Ashwini, well, that could give rise to a person who's a healer. Yeah, it's just a natural concept. Mars in Ashwini, dependent upon where Mars rules. Let's say Mars is the sixth lord, okay, and Ketu is not very well supported. Mars is in Ashwini. Well, then we might find that the person is just getting into a lot of conflicts because they speak before they think, or they take action before they think, and it brings a lot of conflict into their life. It's just a few examples.
Okay, and so with those examples, like for example, when you talked about the Atmakaraka being in this nakshatra, or the 10th lord being in this nakshatra, the reason you said that could make one a healer, I'm assuming because if it's the Atmakaraka, then that's sort of who the person is from a soul level, and so that will get them involved in healing, and that might be part of their work. And with the 10th lord, since the 10th lord can show what a person's known for, and it's in this nakshatra, then they could be known for healing, which is, two reasons which could contribute to, them being a healer, correct?
Exactly. And you find with the nakshatras that they're very concrete. And what I mean by that is, as Ashwini is connected to the divine physicians, it has a very powerful healing quality that's connected to it. And prominent career planets, like we were just discussing, and the Atmakaraka, so what one could be known for, or one's true nature in terms of the Atmakaraka, well, both of those things would be related to a healer.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And then one other question, and I know we're going to go over this multiple times throughout the course, but when we say a planet is well supported, like for example, knowing that the ruling planet of Ashwini is well supported, Ketu, that's going to help planets in the nakshatra work better, as well as if the planet in the nakshatra by its very nature was well supported. So can you describe to us, when you say well supported, what are some things that one would look at, say, okay, this planet looks like it's well supported. If I've got Mars and Ashwini here, and I want to see if is Ketu well supported since it rules over Ashwini, what would I be looking at for Ketu to get a sense of that, or what would I be looking at for Mars to get a sense of that?
Sure. Well, let's talk about Ketu first. That's going to be a bit tricky if for people who are just learning the node, so to speak. But the state of Ketu is going to rely on the state of its lord. Let's say, for instance, Ketu happens to be in Venus, right? And Venus is in an enemy sign, or is in the the first 6 degrees of an even sign, which would make it Mrita, then Venus wouldn't be very well supported.
Okay, so
little things like that: enemy sign, great enemy sign, aspected by enemies,
right?
Sharing a sign with Saturn.
Right. So Ketu being in Taurus or Libra, which is ruled by Venus, and since the nodes act like their lord, then we find Venus and we see, Venus is in difficult dignity, or Venus is under the influence of malefics, or Venus is in the Mrita Vashta, or the dead state. Then that would make Venus not so well supported, which would also make Ketu not so well supported, correct?
Exactly. And the same would work with the planet.
Right.
That is placed in the nakshatra too. Okay,
so if Mars was in Ashwini, then we'd look to see what's the dignity of Mars, how's Mars being influenced by other planets, and what is the Avashta that Mars is in, that Baladi Avashta.
Correct. And the thing is, though, is if you've got a poorly supported lord of the nakshatra, and the planet that's in the nakshatra is strong, then that planet can still, bring forward some positive qualities of that nakshatra simply by its own strength alone. But it's gonna behave in that manner just by its own nature. and not quite as deeply by the nature of the nakshatra one.
Right. Okay. All right. That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's say if it were Mars and K2 wasn't very well supported, then Mars, by its strength of will, is going to be able to carry out the qualities of that nakshatra.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. But its foundation is weak, though, so that would.
Right. So it might be successful, but in the face of great difficulty.
Yeah. Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. Whereas instead of having, say, K2 well supported with Ashwini, and Mars being well supported, then that would show success, but also because one was supported in that success.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay. All right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, is there anything else about Ashwini that we didn't cover? It seems like we.
Well, I mean, I think I would say one thing with Ashwini. Let's say you have somebody who has their moon or their sun or their ascendant in Ashwini. Ashwini tends to give people a presence that's just naturally healing, just by them being around someone. They tend to have a certain charisma or a certain presence that radiates from them. Yeah.
And so that would be true, if we think about, just to those of you who are watching, write this down, assuming it's true, and Michael, you can confirm. Mm-hmm. And that would be true for all of these nakshatras, meaning if the ascendant or the moon or the sun was in a particular nakshatra, the quality of that nakshatra could color the personality or how that person projects themselves in the world.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
All right. Well, would you like to move on to Bharani then?
Let's move on to Bharani. Yes.